Alright, I'm back. Where's the parade? Well, hello there YouTube. Has been a while, hasn't it? I'm sorry I took January off, but I feel everyone was sort of going through that post-Christmas depression where no one wants to do anything. But now I'm back into the swing of things, and I know it's been a year in the making, but I finally got round to it. It's time for us to return to our anthropomorphic friends, and our Master Raccoon Thief, who is just a little bit sly. I must stick with that joke even if no one finds it funny. It's Thieves in Time, everybody! Yes, everybody, literally over a year after the original Sly Raccoon review, Darkest101, you know, me, is finally reviewing the 4th installment of the Sly Cooper franchise. Thieves in Time sees the return of the Master Raccoon in a new adventure of theft, sneaking, and disguises, and above all else, fucking barrels! Sorry. Don't mean to keep bringing that up. Besides, we're not here to talk about the flaws of previous games. We're here to talk about the flaws of this game, of which there are several. So sit back and enjoy the ride, because this is Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. So we start off with the traditional Sly Cooper recap. And straight up we see one of the more obvious differences in Sly 3. The comic strips that highlight a cutscene are actually animated this time. Now, some of you may argue that this little adaptation has taken away some of the charm of the original trilogy, but I would argue that this shows that Sly has at least evolved and adapted for the PS3 audience. Also, it should be noted for any newcomers to the Sly franchise that these animations usually show up after the prologue mission. But whatever, let's see what's happening with Sly.
I should probably just start at the beginning. The name's Sly. Sly Cooper, and I'm a thief. From a long line of thieves. In fact, thieving is the family business. And business was good. Although, until recently, I considered myself retired. Having hung up my mask and cane, I was enjoying life on the other side of the law. In the company of a certain lovely Interpol agent named Carmelita Fox. She and I had a history, which generally involved her trying to lock me up. So, I should mention our current situation was only possible because she thought I had amnesia. I didn't. It was great to finally enjoy each other's company without a shock pistol being involved, and we quickly put the past behind us. But as time went on, the old itch came back, and I knew I needed to pull a heist. I should also mention that as a master thief, I only steal from other thieves. So it took me a while, but I finally found what I was looking for. My target was an upstart art mogul, a real hotshot collector. He seemed respectable, had even opened a new museum. But I could smell a rat. Reliable sources told me he was dealing in black market antiques worth millions. So I felt he should share the wealth. I was working on a plan when one night, as if on cue, Bentley showed up. Bentley was the brains of our operation, the mastermind. We grew up in the same orphanage where we bonded over stealing cookies, our very first heist, and we've been best friends and partners ever since. We hadn't seen each other for a while, but I knew immediately that something was up. Bentley had been enjoying his time off too, building a new lab from scratch with his girlfriend and fellow tech whiz, Penelope. She had joined the team on our last caper, and the two of them had really hit it off. Apparently, they'd just finished work on a top-secret project when Penelope had simply vanished. Bentley was worried sick. He searched frantically but found nothing. Then, he noticed something that completely stunned him. In his spare time, Bentley had been researching the Thieves Raccoonus, the Master Thief's handbook passed down through the Cooper family for generations. Its pages overflowing with the exploits and secret techniques of my esteemed ancestors. Only now, those pages weren't so full. In fact, they were disappearing right before Bentley's eyes. Realizing there was no time to waste, he gathered his gear and raced off to Paris. The first thing Bentley did was track down Murray, the third in our trio. Murray was our enforcer, the muscle, and the guy who'd eaten all the cookies we stole back in our orphanage days. Through the years, the three of us had become an unbeatable team, and we were more like a family now than a gang. Murray had been living his dream on the pro driving circuit, where his van had become famous, or rather, infamous, for all the crashes he'd caused. Eventually, he was unable to find a sponsor due to his high insurance premiums, and he moved into Demolition Derby, where he remained undefeated. When Bentley showed up, however, Murray dropped everything to help out. Especially when Bentley explained that his van was the key to the whole plan. With Carmelita distracted by a new assignment, I took the opportunity to slip away and met up with the guys at our old Paris hideout. Bentley launched into one of his elaborate presentations, and I saw the whole scary picture. Someone, or something, was literally erasing Cooper history. Then, to our amazement, Bentley revealed that he already had the solution: time travel. It turns out his top secret project was constructing a time machine. And now he modified the design to fit into Murray's van. We were going to travel back in time, stop those responsible, and fix the damage they'd done. Bentley explained the only catch was that in order to travel to a particular time, the machine required an object from that era. We knew from the changes to the Thieves Raccoonus that our first stop was feudal Japan. So here we were, about to steal a priceless 17th century samurai dagger from the same museum I'd been casing. Funny how things work out sometimes.
I feel like I just stepped back into Halloween because Jesus Christ, that opening cutscene was boring. You took up 5 minutes to set up the premise of the game. What? Okay, Sanzaro, I know what you're doing here. I mean, I know it makes logical sense. Ever since the end of Sly 3, blah blah blah, the gang is broken up now, yada yada. But we don't really need this little nativity to tell us what's happened to the 3 characters since the end of Honor Among Thieves. And we don't need a recap of how they met either. We've had 3 games for this shit. Do we really need to be reminded that Sly, Bentley and Murray met in an orphanage? Do we also need to be reminded that Carmelita is Sly's love interest? And besides, you didn't even need to set up this fact. I mean, they did this already in the closing credits for Honor Among Thieves. If anyone didn't watch, fuck them! Fuck them for not paying attention. And fuck anyone else who decided to jump into Sly without playing the first 3 games first. It's their fault they don't know what's going on. And I mean that, by the way. If you're one of those people who didn't play Sly 1, 2, and 3, and you're that sort of person that Sanzaro made this opening cutscene for, then you deserve to be fucked up the butt with a red-hot poker. Also, is it just me, or does this opening cutscene not only seem unbearably long, but incredibly rushed at the same time? I mean, from where I'm sitting, it seems like Sanzaro didn't think we'd be properly invested in this story if they didn't rush all the exposition of the previous game at us within 5 fucking minutes. Really, it just seems so heavy-handed, it hurts. But anyway, pointless exposition aside, the first mission in Thieves in Time is the usual heist prologue. Only in this one, the tutorial is mixed in with all 3 characters instead of just playing as Sly for the entire section. Which, believe you me, by the way, is a fucking godsend, because it saves us pointless tutorials later on in the game. So, with the typical aid of Bentley and Murray, Sly manages to break into the museum and steal this ceremonial dagger. However, this wouldn't be a Sly Cooper prologue mission without something going horribly wrong.
What the?
You didn't really think you were gonna get away with it, did you, Ringtail?
Oh my god.
Did you, Ringtail?
Are they doing this on purpose now? They have to be. They're generating their own meme. For God's sake, pick a voice actor for Carmelita already!
No good life.
Jesus! So of course, after being rumbled by the Foxy Fairy, yeah, I'm gonna keep calling that, even if no one finds it funny, Sly and the gang jump into the back of the van and kick the time machine into gear.
Do not slow down, Murray!
I never do!
What did I tell you? 88 miles per hour!
The jump back in time, of course, launches us into the first section of the game proper.
We needed to locate Ryuichi Cooper, Master Ninja, and Master Chef. According to the Cooper clan history, Ryuichi Cooper was actually the inventor of sushi. After creating this delectable dish, he opened a sushi restaurant, which, while very prosperous, also provided the perfect cover for a ninja. When we got to Japan, it was obvious something was very wrong. What should have been a peaceful village was more like a heavily patrolled military base. We located Ryuichi's sushi restaurant only to find it shut down and under guard. Things got worse when Bentley discovered that Ryuichi was locked up in a new high-security jail, allegedly for serving bad sushi to the shogun. It all sounded like a pretty tough piece of fish to swallow. We needed to get to the bottom of the situation, and the first order of business was getting Ryuichi out of prison.
Is it just me? And if it is, correct me if I'm wrong, but is Ryuichi the most inaccurately coloured raccoon ever? Sly and the gang, however, are quick to discover they aren't the only ones meddling in time, as during their early reconnaissance missions they spot El Jefe and identify him using his present-day Interpol file. I guess Sanzaro must have run out of creativity while creating Thieves in Time. I mean, why else would they make El Jefe the second Tiger antagonist in the Cooper series? I mean, God forbid there are any other big cats you could make him. After Sly's reconnaissance mission, Sly himself sneaks around the district and obtains the different pieces for the guard's armor. He then uses his newfound disguise to sneak into the prison where they are holding Ryuichi. He breaks his ancestor out, and with his help they begin to plot the overthrowing of El Jefe and the storming of his fortress. However, as they move to achieve this objective, El Jefe ambushes Ryuichi and steals his Cooper cane. Before Sly can retrieve it, however, after the boss fight, El Jefe's time-traveling employer steals it from him and disappears into the ether. Luckily for Sly and others, one of the villain's minions drops off a sheriff's badge, which just so happens to come from the Old Western era, and isn't, you know, a total knockoff. Oh, and you'll never believe this, but coincidence upon coincidence, the Old West era is just where time has gone screwy next. You know, and this may be because I've seen way too many sci-fi shows, you'd think, with all this meddling in the past and shit, that something in the space-time continuum would have gone out the fucking window.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually...
Shut up, 10! So anyway, Sly and the gang head out to the Old West to help out Tennessee Kid Cooper.
We arrived in the Wild West, looking for my ancestor, Tennessee Kid Cooper. a legendary outlaw whose bank robberies were some of the most daring in Cooper lore. When we arrived, it took some time to locate him, but we eventually found him in prison. His arrest was the handiwork of the local sheriff, who had celebrated by posting his own picture all over town. Talk about an ego. We needed to bust Tennessee out of jail. But after some furious calculations, Bentley determined that the best way to do that was from the inside. For the first time in my career, I was going to have to let the law catch me. This could be a real challenge.
The time-traveling villain of this episode is an egotistical, trigger-happy armadillo named Toothpick. In order to break Tennessee out of jail, Sly gets arrested himself and thrown into jail after defacing all of Toothpick's propaganda posters. The two Coopers then hatch a plan to break out from the inside with the aid of Bentley. Afterwards, they retrieve Tennessee's cane. However, Carmelita appears partway through the episode, having been sent back in time after she caught up with the main antagonist in the present, the art collector Cyril Le Paradox. Game, can I just stop you right there? If you're gonna introduce the villain of this game, can you do it in a part where I can cover it in a cutscene? Please? Thank you. In their endeavours to rescue Carmelita from what most likely would have been certain death, Sly, Bentley and Murray are caught by Toothpick. This, however, is about as effective as you'd expect, considering the security system in these games can be thwarted by, you guessed it, a fucking barrel! I will not be letting that drop anytime soon, people. Sly and the gang then hijack Toothpick's gold train and begin to loot it for all it's worth. However, Tennessee manages to reach Toothpick before Sly, and as a result, the sheriff then steals his cane and hands it off to his time-travelling employer. The gang's time machine suddenly malfunctions, however, sending them randomly further into the past, leaving Tennessee and Toothpick behind in the Old West, with all the gold.
Things weren't going very well. We'd landed somewhere, from the looks of it, prehistoric. I was slightly concerned when Bentley broke out the dinosaur repellent, but that was the least of my worries. The crash landing had damaged the van, so the time machine wasn't working properly. Not only was traveling back to Paris impossible, but we couldn't even raise Dimitri on the transceiver. Also, we still had no idea how Le Paradox had managed to develop his own time machine. And that was a scary thought. Carmelita was still really hot about things. I just wanted a chance to explain, to tell her how sorry I was for getting her mixed up in all of this. Before we had a chance to talk, she stormed off in a rage. I tried going after her, but I figured that wasn't the best idea. Our conversation would have to wait, at least until she holstered that pistol. We decided the first order of business was figuring out where and when we were. And then, how we were going to repair the van. Otherwise, we'd have to get used to living in a cave, permanently.
As a result of their less than graceful arrival, the team of course have to rebuild the time machine. At the same time, however, they come across another Cooper from the Stone Ages, which they nickname Bob. Okay game, can I just ask one question? Just one, by the way. I will accept that the Cooper lineage was unable to realise that Bob Cooper even existed. I mean, Slighton Carmen II is the one who started the Thieves Raccoonus. I don't think Bob could, seeing as though paper, writing utensils, and even reading and writing themselves weren't even a concept back in the Stone Ages. But here's my question. If the Cooper family itself didn't know of Bob's existence. How the flying rat shit would anyone else? Okay, barring relevant, related, and understandable questions, the time-traveling villain of this episode is a bear named Grizz, who was a former graffiti artist, now art thief, who plans to forge cave paintings using pterodactyl eggs as paint. You know, logic. He also managed to steal Bob Cooper's new tool, namely the first Cooper cane ever invented. They managed to get Bob Cooper back into shape in order to help them stop Grizz and fix the time machine before they head off to medieval England.
We'd come to merry old England to locate my ancestor, Sir Galeth Cooper, a gallant knight who founded the Cooper Order. Unfortunately, what we found was anything but regal. Sir Galeth had been reduced to performing in a local circus as a jester, complete with ridiculous costume. The villainous stench of Le Paradox hung over the entire area. We didn't know what was going on yet, but we knew it wasn't good. To make matters worse, we still had no information about Penelope. Bentley wasn't letting it show, but I knew deep down he was pretty worried. Hopefully we would find some answers soon. But first, we had to go to the circus.
And just in case you guys were wondering, yes, that was the game's piss-poor attempt at foreshadowing. The crew find and recover Sir Galeth Cooper, who informs them that he was captured by a villainous Black Knight. The crew can't identify him via a present-day Interpol file, so Bentley manages to access the Knight's fortress. It is revealed when he enters that the Knight himself is but a facade for the real villain, Penelope. She is the reason that the Paradox has the means to travel through time, and has also joined forces with him to attempt to coerce Bentley to use his intelligence and make money like he's Tony Stark.
And what do you say to your other nickname, the Merchant of Death?
That's not bad.
Bentley, understandably, slips into depression about Penelope's betrayal, so Sly and the others push on to defeat her without his help. Galeth rushes in a bit too hastily, however, and loses his cane lance. Actually, I shouldn't comment. Tennessee's cane was a fucking gun. Penelope takes the cane and then shows off her brand new mech. Of course, the weakness for such a large robot is obvious, and Sly exploits the hell out of it, bringing it crumbling to the dirt. However, he is trapped by one of the mech's falling parts. Just as Penelope's about to beat him to a pulp, however, Bentley comes in and saves the day with one of her own inventions. Bentley finishes off Penelope and they leave for Saudi Arabia.
We'd traveled to ancient Arabia to find Salim al-Kupar, an ancestor said to possess the stealth of 40 thieves. No surprise then when Bentley's research revealed that this guy was a charter member of the infamous 40 Thieves. For once, it appeared we'd have plenty of backup to help out with this job. When we arrived, however, we were shocked to find that most of the thieves had already retired. Having made their fortunes and gotten older, these great thieves had decided to call it quits and enjoy their golden years in peace. What wasn't shocking was the unmistakable presence of Cyril Le Paradox. Nasty-looking guards patrolled everywhere, and it was clear that something sinister was going on. After some detective work, Bentley had even worse news. No one had seen Salim al-Kupar for some time. He had been working with a few of the remaining thieves, but had simply vanished. So where was he? That was the first thing we needed to figure out.
You'd think, with the fact that all these old-ass locations have been refitted with modern-day technology and security systems, barring the fact they can be thwarted by, you know what, wouldn't you think Sanzara would have addressed Sly's newfound ability to walk on lasers? You know, that little plot twist that they shoved in the last 20 minutes of Sly 3. Anyway, the elderly Salim Al-Kupar has been hiding out after a failed final heist with the final 3 members of the 40 Thieves. The thieves were captured by the villainous Miss Decibel. She then brainwashes the thieves, forcing them to forge documents that create a false royal lineage for Le Paradox. That is a clever plan, I guess, but the hell were you doing in all the other time zones? Le Paradox, as we already know, is trying to erase Coop history for reasons we don't quite yet know. But why do we only have one time period in which he's trying to set up a lucrative future for himself in the present? I mean, I guess the argument is the villains he's hired in each time period are doing their own things in the past for their own ends. But what the hell about Penelope? I mean, as far as I'm aware, she was just there for Sir Galef's cane. Making mechs in the past doesn't really seem like a lucrative business option. Bentley's plan in order to sneak into Miss Decibel's secret hideout is, and literally I cannot believe the words are coming out of my mouth, to dress Carmelita up as a belly dancer.
What?
Possibly your best plan ever, Bentley.
No, I am 100% serious. This happens. Carmelita does a belly dance for the guards. This is literally nearly pornographic in how detailed it is. Seriously. What the fuck?
You definitely earned your retirement. Go enjoy it. And the belly dancing.
Anyway, Sly and the gang managed to drop Miss Decibel like the elephant in the room she is, and try to catch the Paradox. The only problem is he's kind of kidnapped. Oh, for fuck's sake, Carmelita. How are you an inspector, honestly? No, seriously. You are a police officer, woman? Vixen? Whatever. I mean, seriously, how many times are you gonna get your ass kidnapped in these games? Actually, let's count how many times she's been captured. Okay, 1. Kidnapped by Clockwork in Sly Raccoon. 2. Arrested by the Contessa in Sly 2. 3. Taken over by the Mask of Dark Earth in Sly 3. 4. Kidnapped by the Paradox in Go West Young Raccoon, this very game. And 5. Captured again by the Paradox right fucking now. 5 times in 4 games. There is only one way in which her character has improved in all that time, and that is because, quite frankly, since you get to control her in this game, her aim no longer sucks ass. So the gang return to their hideout and lick their wounds as they prepare for the final showdown with Le Paradox in the present.
We'd finally made it home to Paris, only to find a place we hardly recognized. It was obvious Le Paradox was now in control, since his face covered the city like a bad rash. The only positive was that Bentley was able to dig up a lot of dirt, including the fact that Le Paradox was from a family of thieves himself. And then we made a major discovery. I knew that my dad's heist of the world's largest diamond had made him a legendary thief, but what I never knew was that Le Paradox's father had planned to steal it first, and frame my dad for the crime. Only he was a little too slow, and got himself caught instead. With his father gone, Le Paradox had no one to teach him the family business, and after a string of failed jobs, he wound up in prison too. It was here, ironically, that he finally got his criminal education. After his release, The Paradox maintained the appearance of a law-abiding citizen. In reality, he used his prison contacts to form his own syndicate and began masterminding heists worldwide. These days, he traveled the globe as a billionaire art collector, while his real business was the trafficking of priceless stolen treasures. Clearly, he blamed the Coopers for his family's past misfortunes, and his plan was to wipe us out completely. I had to find a way to stop it, but first, I had to rescue Carmelita.
Seeing as how we've already seen that these characters somehow never learn from previous mistakes, Sly falls for the Carmelita obviously bait routine for the second time. This of course means the Paradox now has both Sly and Carmelita captured and prepares to throw them into a time tunnel. This little device will cause them to careen through all of time endlessly, or until they turn to dust or something, I don't know. Bentley and Murray, however, come to the rescue, aided by the past Coopers we've already met throughout the game. The Paradox blimp then begins a crash landing into the middle of Paris. Sly orders Carmelita, Bentley and Murray to leave while he deals with the Paradox. After the Paradox's inevitable defeat at the hands of Sly Cooper, the skunk nabs Sly's paraglider and leaps for freedom while the blimp and Sly disappear, thus concluding Thieves in Time. And that, everybody, is my review. Sorry it took so long and everything, but the way I see it, we waited 7 years for the game. I think we can hang on 1 year for my review. Anyway, that's Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time. What do I think about it? Well, Thieves in Time is a vast improvement from Honor Among Thieves. Whereas in Honor Among Thieves, Sly was just hunting for more money, which showed his greed more than anything else. This time he's fighting for his family name, his family honor, his family history, and above all else, his own existence to boot. This definitely captured the passion of the first 2 games. Although I think it's cheap that Sanzaro ended it on the What's Happened to Sly story for the 2nd game in a row. Still, it's an homage to the Sly games, and if this game doesn't get a sequel, I will be fucking pissed. Overall, Thieves in Time is another welcome and long-awaited addition to the Sly name. But how well does it stack up overall? It's time to come down to what counts, the dark rating. Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time receives a dark rating of 75, because, you know, it fucking deserves it.
Woo-wee! Cut that closer than a $10 shave!
But anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this review. Like, favourite and subscribe if you did. If you have a suggestion for my next review, drop it in the comment section below. Send me a line on Twitter, and as of right now, share it with me on Google+. And just a heads up, if another Sly game does come out, I cross my heart, hope to fly, stick a cupcake in my eye. It will not take a year. Probably. But, as always, I've been Darkest101. You have been watching Darkest101 Reviews. Thanks for watching. Good night, YouTube.